Welcome. My name is Colin Tierney. I work on the marketing team here at Sageworks. I'll be introducing our presentation today and then turning it over to our first presenter. I'm excited to have you all today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your work day. I know it's probably busy schedules this time of year, as we're wrapping up the year, so I definitely appreciate you taking the time. We're going to be talking about the industry and some of the insights from this year and moving into next year. But first, I want to get into a couple housekeeping items. If you do have questions at any point during this webinar, please feel free to enter those into the question box that you'll find in the control panel to go to webinar. Additionally, we'll have a Q&A session as time allows at the end of this webinar. So please ask any question at any point about the content, and we'll have some time hopefully to address that. And please, if time doesn't allow for any reason, obviously you can follow up with us at Sageworks, and we'll be happy to respond to you either by phone or email. A quick introduction for Sageworks in case any of you aren't familiar with us. Sageworks is based in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are a software as a service company. Been around for about 20 years now. We provide software to banks, credit unions, accounting firms, which we'll be talking about today, and also business valuation professionals. So a variety of different types of customers. We treat all of our customers as partners in our work, and we provide ongoing consulting as well as training for new hires and support and things of that nature to make sure that you're getting the most value out of the software. You can see we've also won an award recently for our customer service. It's something that is very important to us here at Sageworks. We're going to be launching a couple quick poll questions just to get some insights about the audience so that we can better direct this webinar and have more of a, at least as much as we can, have a dialogue today. And there's the first poll question. Please take a minute and answer that. We're about to wrap up this poll question. Please submit your answers. We have a couple, looks like some folks are still answering the question. Thank you for responding. Again, just a couple quick questions we would like to address. Please take a second to answer this one as well. Then we'll have, I believe, one other, and we'll get into the presentation shortly. And just a couple seconds here. Thank you for your answers. And everyone, this is the final question for this quick poll here at the beginning. All right, and I was just told we did sneak in one extra. Sorry about that. But it will only take a second. We're looking forward to getting to the content here shortly. So please answer the question quickly, and we'll just get to the last one in a moment. All right, thank you for that. So I'm now going to introduce our presenter. We'll actually have some words from the Sageworks team towards the end so you can hear a little bit about some of the things we've been up to this year and going into next year. But our presenter for today is Katie Tolan we're actually really excited to have Katie with us, and great of her to take some time out of her schedule to be with everyone. Katie is actually well known in the industry as someone who is a tremendous thought leader, has been named by Accounting Today as one of the top 100 thought leaders in the industry. She's also been called one of the most powerful women in the accounting industry by CPA Practice Advisor. So we're excited to have her. She's going to be sharing some insights that she's seen in the industry, and also some of the things that firms should be thinking about as they're making decisions for 2016, how they could better create growth for their organization. So we're going to turn this over to Katie now, and she's going to walk you through her slides, and then after that we'll spend just a few minutes talking about some of the Sageworks announcements from 2015.
Thank you so much, Colin, and welcome everyone today. I know it's this time of year that we're wrapping up the end of 2015 and thinking ahead to 2016, and a lot of you may actually be working on your marketing plan for the upcoming year. And if you're actually doing so, I hope you take a moment to look at that plan with some fresh eyes, because there's a chance that you may need to change some of the strategies that you've been doing for many years. There is a revolution that's occurring today in marketing, and you can either be part of this revolution and employ some of these new trends and gain additional market share, or sit back and watch as yours disappears. I hope, since you're on today's call, you're really curious about what is happening so you can get yourself on the front end of that. A few years ago now, I read about companies that like to put their sacred cows into meat grinders. They recognize that some things have to change or go. And if that's something your firm's ever thought about, 2016 may be the year to do it. We're going to spend approximately the next 30 minutes looking at about 10 different trends that I think have started shaking up the marketing industry, especially in CPA firms, and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. Let's start by looking at how marketing spending itself has increased over the past year alone. The Association for Accounting Marketing did a budget survey. They actually had firms report how many dollars they spent in very specific areas. And that allowed them to do a apples-to-apples comparison of marketing spending. And what the survey found is that firms are spending more in 2015 than they did in 2014. The survey also looked at and compared how high-growth firms compared to those that were slower, and that was in terms of organic growth. And what you'll see is that high-growth firms are actually spending a little bit more money. But I think what's most intriguing is how they are spending those dollars, and we'll get to that. I think there's a reason for this increase, and I think that relates to the trends that we're going to talk about today. As the marketing landscape is changing, it's moving to higher price tactics. Firms are looking to add these tactics to their marketing mix, but they haven't dropped prior spending to a level that allows everything to balance out. And I think that's contributing in part to some of the increase that we've seen. What I thought was interesting about the survey as well is it looked at spending by firm size as well as geography. And those smaller firms, which they classified as firms with less than $10 million in revenue, actually spend a higher percentage of their revenue on marketing. So do rural firms. And I think, as we look at that and you try to figure out why, is there are specific marketing tactics, if you're going to do sponsorships or a lot of times you pay dues to something. And those are set fees. They're not scalable based on the size of your company. So it's requiring smaller firms to actually spend a little bit more money to remain competitive with what the bigger firms are doing. Part of increased spending is also related to the number of people who are working in CPA firms. The survey also looked at what does the staff look like, and it's incredibly interesting because in 2014 there was one marketer for about every 65 employees. That number dropped in 2015 to one marketer for every 54 employees. I think what you're seeing is firms adding more people to their marketing staff. These are people that are bringing in a different skill set than their current marketing staff. But I think even more than that is you're seeing smaller firms that are making their first ever marketing hire or their first ever business development hire. So I think that's part of why that number dropped. Firms that have marketing staff, the compensation for these employees is not a small amount. It's over a quarter of the marketing budget when you include compensation as part of that. So I think that's important to note that that's impacting their spending as well. The Association for Accounting Marketing also did a survey that looked at compensation trends, and they asked HR directors to report on compensation for marketing staff. And what the survey found is that in 2015, base salary for these individuals increased by almost 5%. I believe total comp for these employees increased by about 5.2%. We also asked these HR professionals what they expected in terms of raises for 2016. And that number is less. It's only going to be around 4% this year, but that's still a sizable chunk when you're talking about one item that makes up over 25% of your overall marketing budget. It's continuing to drive up a firm's marketing investment. Of course, increases in compensation vary based on title, and this is kind of a snapshot of some of those comp rates as well as the raises that these individuals saw. And I think, you'll see that the raises were higher at the higher levels of experience. And I think this is a good thing. Once upon a time, a marketer's tenure in a firm was around 2 years, and that number is definitely going up. And I think that's because firms are seeing the value that these marketers are providing, and they're actually retaining them. They don't want to hire a new marketer every 2 years. They want to build upon that skill set. And I also see firms recruiting a higher level of marketer than they ever have before. So I think that's a very interesting trend as well. I did want to point out, as you'll see, the Director of Business Development, their raise was only about 1%. And I just want to point out that their comp is completely different. They get the bulk of their compensation from commission based on what they sell. So the base salary is a pretty small part, and that's not how you motivate those types of employees. So that is what that 1% accounts for. So besides staff, what are firms spending their marketing dollars on? Here's a look at the top 10 marketing expenses. And these were everyone who participated in the survey, and we'll take a look in a second on how that differs based on growth rate. But you're going to see a lot of traditional marketing on here. You're going to see things like sponsorships and membership dues and charitable givings. But I also want to note the fact that there are some newer trends on here, such as websites and search engine optimization, which is getting your website to appear higher in search engine results. But I think it's interesting because when you look at how firms as a whole spend, what you see is a big difference between that and how high growth spends. And what we're seeing is a shift in marketing spending that's happening within our industry. So as you look at the high growth budgets, notice that there's things that we saw in the last chart in there, like websites and SEO. But there are things that we don't see. So for example, marketing automation and CRM, or client relationship management software, and different data software. That's something that's being employed in higher growth firms, and it's a trend that we'll talk about here in a minute. Low growth firms are still spending the bulk of their budgets on sponsorships and advertising and dues and internal parties, and these are all very traditional marketing activities that we've been doing for decades. And I think these firms are going to be looking to how do you get and begin shifting your marketing spending as well. What I find is interesting is some of these new trends being adopted by the high growth firms actually do a better job of driving leads. And so I have to wonder, even, what's the correlation between those tactics and the fact that they're a high growth firm compared to the low growth firms who are not employing those tactics. So what's driving the shift in marketing? It really comes down to big data. It's changing our landscape. It's everywhere. We hear about it all of the time. And today, data has now impacted marketing. Marketers who you often view as creative and artsy are becoming more mathematicians. Their marketing is about embracing metrics and doing analytics and looking at those metrics and gaining insights and using those insights to direct your marketing strategies. And I think we're going to see more firms doing that. Now, CPA firms as a whole are traditionally on the back end of any adoption curve. So this is being employed in corporate America much more than it is in CPA firms. But there are firms out there that are employing this tactic, and that's a trend that's definitely going to continue into 2016. Marketers are looking to develop strategies based on the data that you have within your firm. This data already exists in some of your software. However, there are silos that makes bringing this data together very challenging. So, for example, there are silos that exist between programs. Probably one of the most common examples I've seen are programs that, like for example, a firm might have CRM, but that program doesn't talk to your practice management or your time and billing system, so there's a lack of integration of that data. There are also silos between departments. So perhaps marketing owns one piece of software and IT really owns the other. Are they really talking about the synergies of that data and how you bring it together? And I think there's also silos that exist between people. Every firm has that individual out there that protects their information. They protect their contacts. They protect who they're working on. They want to protect any insights they may have found out about a client or a prospect as their own. And I think these are some of the silos that are going to need to come down as firms are embracing big data. There's a book out there. It's called Big Data Marketing by Lisa Arthur. I actually heard Lisa speak and was very, very impressed, so then I bought the book. I think it's a good introductory read for anyone who wants to understand how data is impacting marketing today. I think because data is actually housed in software, and we're actually in a technology-driven society, we're seeing a lot more marketing technology today. What you're looking at now is a graphic that summarizes a presentation. So I listened to a presentation on the collision of marketing and technology, and they actually put together this cartoon per se that summarized it. And I wanted to share it because I think it gives us a good synopsis of what's happening. So if you start up in the left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner, how big of a deal this is. Marketing and technology is a big deal. It's the biggest thing that's happening in marketing today. What you're seeing is marketing departments are moving away from communications. I mean, communications is still important, but they're really focusing on how do you create an experience. Marketing is moving away from what cool picture are we going to use on our website or in our ad, and what's that copy going to say? And they're moving into math and data, and some of them even coding. You're also seeing a shift in planning. Once upon a time, you could set a marketing plan for 12 months and implement and sit back and forget it. Well, technology today is making that not as necessary because you can change midstream. You have the ability to test 3 different subject lines in an email to actually see which one's going to have the best response. So even within a campaign, you can readjust what you're doing accordingly. As everything is being run by software, we're really in the golden age of marketing software, and how marketing is seeing and interacting with customers in a digital platform. The promotion of a company actually could be impacted in just a heartbeat. It takes only a second for somebody to go out there and give a review of your company. It could be a positive review or a negative review. So embracing this technology out there and understanding what's going on allows you to actually plan accordingly. Marketing technology is really the future of where marketing is going. And what it's going to require is marketers that are actually part technology and part marketing hybrids. So marketing is going to have to expand their talents if you have them in-house, and you're going to have to look at expanding your marketing resources if that is a function your firm actually outsources. So there's a lot of technology in the world today, and what you're looking at here is the 2015 edition of the Marketing Technology Landscape Supergraphic. There are over, or maybe just shy of 2,000 vendors on this chart that you're looking at now, and they're in 43 different categories. What I found most interesting is the number of vendors in this chart actually doubled from 2014 to 2015. And the people that put this together, admittedly say they don't even think it's comprehensive. The analogy they used is counting marketing technologies is a lot like counting stars. There's always a higher resolution where you can find more. I've read predictions that people expect these number of technology companies to expand, and it's actually going to get larger before the ecosystem contracts and a few key players raise to the top. I actually compare this a lot to social media. You think back 5-7 years ago when you first started hearing about social media, you saw similar graphics that had all of the social media platforms that are out there. Today there are still a lot of social media platforms, but what's happened is we've been able to clearly identify the handful that are important in marketing a CPA firm, and hopefully that will come in the marketing tech space as well. So what exactly is marketing tech? There's things like mobile marketing. I'm not sure how many CPA firms are doing it. I think we're trying to dip our toes in the water to figure out how mobile and apps and all that come into play. Video marketing, content marketing, which I believe almost everyone is doing. It's incredibly popular. CRM, marketing automation, which is a very hot new trend. If you haven't heard that term yet, you probably will. But what it does is it automates various steps of the marketing process for you to help pull people into your sales funnel and drive them through at a rate that they're comfortable with and not a rate you're comfortable with. There's also data management and data visuality, and there's so much technology out there. There's a popular prediction in the marketing technology space that says that the CMO is actually going to spend more on IT than the CIO by 2017. Now, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I'm pretty positive that's not going to happen in the CPA space by 2017. I have talked to some IT professionals, though, and they believe in certain industries that this definitely will hold true for sure. There's another staggering prediction out there from IDC, and basically it says that worldwide spending on marketing software is going to increase by 50%, and that's by 2018. So in just 3 years, there's going to be a 50% increase on what companies are spending on technology. So whether these exact predictions come true or not, I don't know, but what I think it does show us is that there is a trend that is going to be happening. Marketing is going to be buying more technology, and at some point in time, that number is going to increase. CPA firms spend a lot on IT. I don't know if it'll ever surpass it, but I definitely see that gap getting closer. Digital also has the power to let us prove return on investment. One of my favorite quotes actually talks about the fact that half of your marketing works and the other half doesn't, and you don't know which half it is. And what I find most interesting about this quote is it was actually stated in the late 1800s. And you think back to just 10 years ago, and it was still incredibly valid. Today, it probably still is when you look at some of the traditional like print advertising and sponsorship type of marketing spending. In the nearly 20 years that I've been working with professional service firms, partners always want to know what sort of return their marketing is producing. And until recently, when we had digital forms such as websites and emails and social media, we weren't able to prove that. Those technologies have improved, and the new technologies are actually allowing us to show which strategies are having the most success in terms of what it's driving to your firm's pipeline. The amount of data that's able to be tracked digitally is pretty impressive. Honestly, from a marketing perspective, it is so cool, the amount of data some of the software can provide you. I'll tell you from a personal standpoint, it's a little creepy that they know that much about you, but it's a great way to help us show the return on investment. There are all sorts of metrics you can track. There are metrics that measure activity, so what is it that you're doing? There are metrics that measure output. So, for example, what are the results of what you're doing? The operations, how efficient and effective are you doing what it is that you're doing? And then there's the metrics that measure your outcome. Marketing should produce results, and this is probably what's most important is the results. If you're still looking at things like open rates, you're probably missing the boat. Why? Because you can measure till you're blue in the face, but if it's not driving the results you want, it doesn't matter. as you look at your marketing activities, I encourage you just to come up with your own KPIs related to marketing and use them to measure your success. Today it's not about how many likes you're getting. It's more important the quality of the people that are doing the likes. Are these the people that are most likely to buy your products and services? Because that's ultimately who we want to be communicating with. I'm a firm believer that all marketing activity should drive top-line revenue because digital marketing provides us with data and allows us to calculate that level of ROI to show what it is that we're doing and the success of your marketing activities that you're taking. I think you're going to see more firms tracking ROI at a higher level than they ever have before. And I would also think those firms that have been doing ROI for quite a while are going to be expanding how they're doing that. They're going to be using more mathematical formulas or software to pull in all of this different data to paint a better picture of the exact return of any of your marketing investments. Firms have always spent money on content development. I think, as professional service providers, as accountants, that's what we have to share as our knowledge, and it's something we've always embraced. With marketing technology today, there's an increased focus on content, but I think there's going to be a big push for quality content. And here's why. I think content marketing has gotten so popular that there are people that are doing it, but they're not doing it well. And so there's tons of stuff out there competing for your attention. Nothing is more frustrating when you click on something and you get partway through it and you realize it provides no value to you at all whatsoever. So I think where we really need to go is stepping up our game and providing that higher quality content. It really needs to provide value to the readers and drive them to the next stage in the sales process. So it starts with creating awareness, but it ends with them taking some sort of action. And I think that's the type of content that we're going to need, is that content that drives the action. Because of the increased focus on quality content, I think we're going to see more original research. For example, this could be a report that looks at compensation trends within the medical profession, or perhaps fraud trends in the not-for-profit sector, or maybe it's a study of obstacles that CFOs face that prevent them from doing their jobs to the way they would like. The options are endless for that sort of original research, and I definitely think we're going to see more of it. The other thing when it comes to content is, remember that content is also visual content. So it could be things like video and live streaming. Video in the past 2 years has gained in popularity, and I think we're going to see more of that. Production costs continue to come down. Editing software, a lot of times this can be purchased and done in-house. You still have to have some skills and abilities to do that type of thing, but you no longer need to have a full-time video production team to put out a video. But what I really believe is going to shadow video is live streaming. So you can now share bits and parts of things that you do. So if you're making a presentation, you can live stream part of it for people to see. Or let's say your firm's getting some big award. You can actually live stream that. It allows people to see the world through your eyes. I think this is going to be an important content strategy as you're really looking to create that awareness and pull people into your sales funnel to begin with. We have all this data now, we have all this technology, and we're pushing out this higher level of content. And all of this is really about creating a customer experience. But I think it's more than that. Customers interact with you by nature. I mean, you interact with your clients on a daily basis, and as you're doing that, you're creating an experience for them, whether you're doing it intentionally or not. But how consistent is that? How consistent is that between two partners in the same firm, or a partner and a staff in the same firm, or two offices? And are you really providing what it is that the client's looking for? You can walk into any Starbucks in America and have a similar experience. So from the way that you're greeted, to putting your name on the cup, to the way your drink is made, you know what you're going to get. And that customers are looking for that same unique and consistent interaction with you too. There are actually a handful of marketing directors who this past year have transitioned their jobs from strictly marketing to directors of client experience. And that's because they're no longer focusing solely on bringing the new clients into the firm. Rather, they're managing that entire client life cycle. So they're focused on understanding the experience from the marketing and sales perspective, but also from the service and delivery perspective as well, making sure that there's high quality interactions all the time with the clients as a way to drive loyalty. It's about putting the customer first all the time and to drive your brand throughout the organization in a very consistent manner. All of this is done to build customer loyalty and to protect your future revenue streams, because if you have a loyal customer, they're not going anywhere. Even firms that don't have a client experience position in their firm, I think that you're going to begin looking at what this experience is. I think it's going to be a good way to differentiate yourself in a way that differs from your competition. And for those people that are looking for that experience, they're going to find it somewhere. So hopefully it's you're the one that's providing them the experience that they're looking for. Technology today is making it easier for us to actually work in a global marketplace. So there's a tremendous amount of untapped potential out there. So you could be one of those firms that are sitting in your office waiting to compete with your same 3 competitors for that new client that just decided to go out to bid. Or you could look beyond borders and look for potential elsewhere. I think most firms can probably help businesses that are looking to do work in other countries. I think that's where international associations are very, very helpful. But there are some firms that are actually expanding this strategy. So for example, they may know that Japanese manufacturers are the biggest foreign employer in your state. So they decide to, focus on Japanese manufacturers. But that's not it. They're actually hiring people who speak Japanese. They're training their employees on what the Japanese culture is like and what it's like to do business in Japan and with people that are Japanese. They're actually exchanging employees. So perhaps you send one of your accountants over to Japan and take one of theirs for 6 months to really instill that level of culture within organizations. The opportunities for firms to carve out a specialty in the global marketplace at this point in time is endless. There's not a lot of competition there. And I think as firms are looking at organic growth and what is it that they can do to grow organically, they're going to begin looking at global as that possibility. Probably more popular than a global strategy, though, is the number of firms that are looking to bring in those high-margin consulting services. So they're bringing in things like maybe it's HR consulting, maybe it's cloud-based accounting, and some of the consulting they do on that. They're looking to bring those sort of things in. And I think that's definitely going to continue. But I think what we might see is firms that are bringing entirely new offerings to the accounting industry. If you just look at acquisitions made by some firms in the past year, you're going to see that they're hiring IT. I think IT is a very common consulting service that firms are looking to bring in these days. But I've seen firms that have brought in, global market development companies and, healthcare consulting companies. And those are just a few off the top of my mind. I think there's a synergy between a CPA firm and a consulting business. I think you're going to see more of them joining, especially when that service is something that a firm can sell to its existing clients. It's a good way to build revenue with somebody who is already loyal and you have a level of trust with. As you look at innovation, though, I also think technology itself is going to provide a new opportunities. It's going to be instrumental in any global strategy anybody comes up with. It's going to be instrumental if you're even looking to expand your market outside of your city or your state or your tri-state area or whatever it is that you operate in now. But I also think technology is going to result in whole new service offerings that we don't even know about today. I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there that's actually working on something today. I also think we might see technology shake up some of our more established service offerings. Technology perhaps could shake up auditing. As we're looking to increase our efficiency in audits so that we can increase our profitability on them, maybe there's a technology solution that's going to allow firms to do that. And as we've sat here and we've talked about the trends that drive organic growth, I'd really be remiss if I didn't hit upon the fact that M&A is still a huge thing in our industry. You know, it's not driving organic growth, but it's still an important part of a firm's growth strategy. You know, we just talked about how firms are merging in, you know, these consulting advisory services, and we're definitely going to see more than that, more of that. I also think we're going to see firms that are looking to expand their geographic footprint. So they're going to be looking for a new city or a new state in which to have an office. I also think you're going to see these firms that are acquiring additional service to bring in under their umbrella, or a different industry specialty to bring into their practice as well. I talked to a managing partner a few months back, and you know, he basically told me that his firm could have done a deal a week this year if he really wanted to, but they didn't. And why didn't they? Is because most of the firms that approached him had nothing to offer. And unfortunately, this isn't uncommon. I think managing partners everywhere are seeing that. And I think there are a number of those firms, though, that are actually stepping back and taking that rejection to heart and working to improve themselves. They're trying to firm up their finances. They're maybe implementing technology or upgrading their technology. They're building a culture within their organization and among all of their team members, and maybe they have a specialty and they're formalizing it, or they're trying to develop one, and they're making themselves marketable. And as they become marketable, I think you're going to see them driving future M&A activity as well. So as we've talked about how firms are moving from traditional marketing activities to those being driven by data and by technology and by return on investment, you know, this is not a shift that most firms can accomplish overnight. It's going to require that you be open and willing to look at your sacred cows. I would start by looking at your current spending. So can you align every dollar that you spend to a growth goal? And then is it measurable? Do you know what kind of results you're getting from spending those dollars? You know, if you're going to really embrace some of these new tactics, you're going to have to adjust your spending or increase your budget substantially, which we know is not going to happen. It just doesn't make sense. So you got to figure out where you can cut. So look at those things that don't tie to your strategy, those things that aren't producing results. I think it's a good place to start. You also want to make sure that you find the marketing skill set you need. So whether that's an in-house marketing professional or an outside consultant or freelancer or whoever you use, maybe within your firm to help with your marketing. Not all marketers are alike, and they all have very different skill sets. You know, you wouldn't go out and hire an auditor if you really needed a tax professional. And marketing is like that as well. You need to make sure that you're working with or utilizing somebody who has the skill sets to drive the goal that's most important to you. I think you also need to recognize the role that data is playing in marketing strategy. You need to embrace this. I mean, the data is going to allow you to be more effective and have better results with the tactics that you're employing. So you probably need to spend some time cleaning up your data. So can you tell me how much ABC manufacturer spends on salt services in a given year within your firm? Or do you even know that XYZ company is really an orthodontist, or do you just think that it's healthcare? No data out there anywhere. You're never going to find data that's 100% accurate. And I think you have to recognize that. But I'm guessing your data probably leaves a lot of room for improvement, and you've got to clean it up before you can really start figuring out how to use that to guide your future strategy. And then I know we're always out there talking to our staff about how important it is to service our clients, how we need to be responsive and how we need to be proactive and all those great things. Start thinking beyond that. You know, think about, you know, what is that experience that you want, and actually talk to your staff about the experience you want your clients to walk away with after an interaction with you. You know, if you don't create that experience, you know, one is going to create itself within your organization. Finally, I think, you know, as you're looking to shift your strategy, narrow your focus. You know, chances are whatever's circulating in your mind right now is probably too much. Recognize that you can't tackle everything we talked about, that I just talked about. You know, you might be able to do one of them, you might be able to do two of them. So this is really a multi-year shift, not an overnight shift. You know, overall, I think it's very important that you think smaller in order to get bigger, and I think that's advice that works in most instances when it comes to growing your CPA firm. So To wrap up, I want to summarize. These are the 10 trends that I just talked about that I think are changing the way CPA firms approach growth. You know, we're in the middle of this major paradigm shift in marketing and growth tactics. The changes that have happened in the last 5 years alone have been pretty substantial. And what we're going to see is a rapid path of more change like that for the foreseeable future. So this is not going to slow down in order for you to catch up. The sooner you can embrace some of this modern marketing, the more likely you are going to be to both retain and grow your market share. So that's really what I had for you today. And at this point in time, I want to turn it over to Rick Anderson of Sageworks. He's going to share some exciting things that are happening over at Sageworks.
All right, thank you, Katie. Really appreciate those insights and all the research you compiled to bring that together to us today. We're going to turn it over to Rick Anderson for a quick introduction. Rick is a product manager here at Sageworks and has led the product team in the division for accounting, and that includes both our accounting product, ProfitSense, as well as our business valuation solution. So I'm going to turn it over to Rick here in a minute, and he's going to go through some of the major announcements that we've had from our team in 2015 and some things to expect in 2016.
All right, thank you, Colin. I appreciate the introduction there. And really, yeah, just excited to talk about our Sageworks valuation solution and our ProfitSense platform in the accounting community. And as Katie talked about, obviously having some strategies for growth, we want to really address potentially some challenges or some issues that firms are going to come across as they look to grow, and help you give an understanding essentially of how Sageworks technology can really tie into helping you address those issues. So of the firms that we've surveyed, we've identified some top issues, essentially 6 issues that firms in both the accounting community and the valuation community are going to look to face as essentially they look to grow. And obviously, number 1 on that list is actually acquiring and retaining clients, essentially whether that's growing organically, you know, similar to some of the ideas that Katie's addressed, or whether it's through M&A. But obviously, you're going to look to essentially acquire or retain clients. There's going to be issues around generating scalable growth, firm growth, communicating complex financials to clients, attracting new talent, adopting new technology, and integrating web-based software with business processes. So when we take a look at these top 6 issues, we really can break these down into 2 categories. And essentially that's in scaling your practice, and then effectively in creating an infrastructure to sustain growth. So within acquiring and retaining clients, when you think about essentially the issue of actually how to bring on new clients while maintaining clients, is essentially, you know, helping you understand what that value proposition is that your firm is demonstrating and communicating to your prospects and to essentially your existing client base. So with that, you know, what resources does your firm have, and how does it essentially differentiate itself? And that's something to consider when you think about what resources that you have. And one of the nice things about Sageworks technology that our customers and clients currently appreciate is that it helps them really to add to their value proposition. It helps them differentiate themselves from the competitors by providing essentially reporting, by providing information that essentially other firms are not having access to, and thereby not able to essentially assist these companies. So some of the things to think about when acquiring and retaining clients are essentially what resources does your firm have access to that can differentiate it from the firm down the road. Now, as you look to bring on these new clients, obviously there's going to be issues around generating scalable firm growth. So essentially you don't want to add on a new client and then have to bring on another employee, because essentially that's not really going to be scalable based on the services you're providing. So are you able to leverage technology that's going to able to essentially allow you to generate scalable growth? So within the Sageworks solutions, you're going to find within both ProfitSense and the valuation solution that the technology is going to help you scale as you bring on new clients. And more importantly, to tie back into that idea of communicating your value proposition. A lot of firms out there are providing a lot of good information to their clients, but they're not necessarily the most effective communicators. The content isn't necessarily breaking through to the actual client or to the company that firms are working with. So essentially having access to resources that help you effectively communicate your value statement to your client base is going to be really important. And again, that's going to be core to Sageworks technology, is whether it's going to be visually or actually writing out in plain language. Sageworks technology actually is going to allow you to take the information that your firm's compiled on your clients and help you communicate to them in a way that they can understand and help provide them some actionable intelligence. Now, as you look to scale and as you look to increase your client base, you're going to want to actually make sure that you do have some of that infrastructure in place, which is going to actually include new talent. So essentially new employees. And studies effectively show that employees are attracted to essentially firms that are more progressive, that actually have more advanced technology in place. Nobody wants to work for a firm essentially that doesn't have the internet or doesn't have a computer. I'm not sure if any of those exist anymore. But also, as you look to adopt new technology, there needs to be an implementation plan in place. And then essentially firms are going to need help as they look to bring on new technology as far as best practices. One of the great things about Sageworks and the company in general is we actually help firms implement any technology that's brought on. So as you consider that idea of going through that transition of bringing on to new technology, one of the great things about Sageworks is that we are going to essentially help you adopt that new technology. Now, when you actually look to bring on essentially web-based software, one of the big things that firms often face with bringing on new technology is effectively, is it going to be able to integrate with our existing business processes? And for most firms, your existing business processes are likely going to include your standard office software, so working with Word, working with Excel, PowerPoint, things like that. So one of the great things about our Sageworks technology is while it is web-based, it does give you the ability to not only import information from your Excel, but also actually export it out into a readily workable format. So essentially work with it in Word, work with it in PowerPoint, PDF. So really allowing you some flexibility to essentially bring on new technology, but then make sure that it still actually does work with your existing infrastructure. So I want to give you an idea, again, of the two different platforms that Sageworks offers for those of you that are, essentially not existing users of the software. But within Sageworks Solutions, we do offer ProfitSense and we do offer business valuation solutions. And ProfitSense is going to ideally tie into your advisory services. So for firms that are looking to essentially grow organically, open up more opportunities with their client base, get outside of just your standard compliance work, ProfitSense is usually adopted by firms as a great way to help communicate financial information, allow you to do things like benchmarking, visualization of data, and really get a quick diagnosis of essentially of a client's performance. And then for those of you that are offering valuation services, Sageworks Valuation Solution does offer a web-based platform that really can help you scale your valuation services. So in that, essentially, we can help you with report writing, efficiently doing calculations, bringing in information in a nice, easy, quick format outside of just doing standard data entry. So those are just some quick highlights on the ProfitSense and the Sageworks Valuation Solutions. If you all are currently not subscribers to the software, I definitely recommend that you take a look at that. Do want to transition into essentially some of the enhancements that we have for both platforms in 2015 that we've covered. So one great thing about Sageworks is that we are committed to continually improving the products. So within the both platforms, we have actually spent quite a bit of time on updating integrations and enhancing the integrations. We've also spent some time creating ProfitSense and Sageworks Valuation Solutions. So I kind of want to take you through some of the enhancements that we've done in 2015 and then give you an idea of what we have going on in 2016. So in terms of integration, one big upgrade that we looked to introduce in 2015 was the electronic tax return reader. So this means that firms that are working with essentially tax returns and have them in electronic format, Sageworks technology now has the ability to bring it into the software and then extract the data and allow you to analyze the information. So what that means is we've targeted 5 tax packages, which include Pro Systems, Drake, Lacerte Pro Series, and UltraTax. And effectively now you're able to bring that information right out of the tax return into the software, and whether it's performing a business valuation or analyzing your client's performance to give them some recommendations on how they can improve or how they're doing against the industry, you're going to be able to do that in a very quick and efficient manner. So with that, it really opens up, again, those scalable services. So for firms that are looking to break into the advisory side of things, you're going to be dealing with a lot of tax information here in just a couple of months, and especially for your businesses, you'll have access to that information. So on your end, it's going to give you a good opportunity, if you want to then leverage this information to have maybe more detailed conversations or even new conversations with your client base that you haven't been able to happen before. Now, one of the great features about the actual electronic tax return reader is no data entry. So we're going to be able to import the data directly into either one of the packages, which requires no mapping, really no data entry on your end at all. But we still allow you to go back and edit the information once it's brought into either platform. So that means you're going to have the option to actually view the information either in electronic tax return format, or you can actually do it in a financial statement format. So the tax return reader will actually convert the tax return into a financial information view as well. Now, as I mentioned, we do have 5 tax packages. So what that means for our existing client base is that your integration options actually have increased by 100%. And then with that, you can actually pull data in just a few minutes. Now, outside of the electronic tax return reader, we also did upgrade our Excel integration technology. Prior to 2015, we were able to bring in Excel data that was formatted in a financial statement format. So if you had an income statement and a balance sheet, that information could be brought into Sageworks technology. Now you can actually do that also with a trial balance format. So actually a lot of firms request that. So that option is available now. So if you're not, again, aware of that option, definitely contact your consultant. We can take you through a training on that. We also introduced Zero integration, which we're excited about. Zero is the fastest growing accounting package out there, and they're really giving QuickBooks a run for their money. Essentially globally, they've really exploded, and they're actually coming into the States. If you haven't heard of Zero yet, which I'd be surprised, it's completely web-based accounting package, but they're a solid competitor out there. So your Sageworks solutions will integrate directly with Zero technology as well. And for those of you that are not currently customers, just a quick update, we do essentially have 8 integration options available to you now. So not only working with Excel, but we do work with most of the major accounting packages out there. And then we also have that tax return reader option now to move the information directly into our Sageworks solutions. Now, when we talk about enhancements directly, we want to talk about looking at ProfitSense and some of the enhancements that we've introduced to ProfitSense in 2015. One nice thing that we've brought in is some flexibility in your charting. Now within your charting in both your narrative and your analytical procedures reporting, you're going to see an option in your customized reports where you can actually choose to include or not include benchmarking. So that means you can concentrate just on getting your ratios for your client's performance visualized, or you can select one or all of the different benchmarks that we have available. So this is a great addition that really adds to that flexibility and allowing you to put that personal touch on your reporting. We also introduced the option to create editable report titling. So you'll notice now that when you actually go to generate a report, you'll have an option to title the report, which will tie into the report library section or all previous reports. And in that section, you'll see that you can go back and title any of your reports and name them anything that you like. So just a nice feature enhancement that we introduced this year. And then finally, within ProfitSense, we introduced some additional loan detail information when you look to actually build out a projection and do some loan analysis. The sections that we've introduced some more detail have to do with payment frequency, compounding frequency, and payment options. So when you actually look to add in loan detail before you build out a projection, do note that your loan description section will have a drop down for each note that you introduce. The benefit being some more flexibility in those types of loans that you build out. For those of you that are maybe in the Midwest or maybe work with more farmers, this means that you can work, more essentially with agricultural type loans or essentially loans that maybe don't compound as consistently or frequently. It's going to really open up those options for you that we previously did not address. What we also did was integrate into the actual report itself the detailed interest expense calculation and principal paydowns for every one of your notes. So some great calculation updates that we had within ProfitSense and some good options for report titling and then visualization of your data. So here's just kind of a brief walkthrough of essentially what the charting in more detail would look like, and again where that drop down is going to be available. Again, it's going to be in your customized report options once that report is generated. And then again, you're going to see that report title option inside the actual all previous reports, where you can essentially look to update any of your previous reports that you didn't title. Now, within the Sageworks valuation solution, we actually had a lot of great feedback in 2015 as far as requests for enhancements. So we did introduce some great enhancements which were tied into Federal Reserve economic data, or FRED data, our document manager, financial charting, and also updating methods related to calculations within the software. But within your FRED data that's been integrated into the valuation solution, users actually have the ability now to search through the Federal Reserve economic data, which is integrated right into the valuation solution. The great thing is once you've identified particular charts that you feel like you want to introduce into your final report, you can actually select these and store them and apply them, so that when you effectively look to generate a report, any of your highlighted or selected economic data charts, they're going to be available for you to choose from. So then effectively what you'll find is that you've got access to close to 300,000 charts, which we're pulling right from FRED and integrating into your valuation solution, just to ease essentially that access to information going towards that big data push. And on your end, making sure that, again, this is going to be scalable and an efficient product for you to utilize. Now, within the document manager, we had some good requests from the user base as far as making sure we added some accountability as far as staff that's uploading documents and understanding essentially a date of when that information is introduced into the document manager. So a couple great enhancements essentially that were introduced is in your firm, any of the users that are uploading documents, we're going to make sure to actually tie in uploaded by, and then their information will be added to that actual document. And then you'll see the date that they introduced that information. So a nice feature there just to add some accountability and some clarity and visibility in the document manager. Now, within the valuation solution, in terms of the common size charting, we did integrate Sageworks data or industry data into the common size section of the reporting. So now when you actually look to build out your reports, they're going to be seamlessly integrated in there for you. Again, a great request that we had, that now when you look to build out your finished valuation report and you want to have some industry comparisons integrated in there, these charts are going to be auto-built for you, and then you don't have to essentially go and do your industry research separate and build your report in another place. It's all going to be integrated in one place. And then finally, with the Sageworks valuation solution, we did introduce essentially an update method calculations. So this means when you go in and making adjustments to your adjusted financials, you have the option now to reset any of your methods and recalculate from the data that you've updated. So again, some great time savings there. If you just want to quickly pull the information in from the adjusted financials, we now have that option. And you'll see that within any of the methods within the Sageworks valuation solution. And just look for that update from adjusted financials button, and it will update your calculations for you. Now for 2016, we are targeting some enhancements. So we are going to continue to focus on integration. And I'm excited to announce that we are actually going to be introducing QuickBooks Online integration for 2016. So that means we're looking at somewhere around February that you'll have the option to integrate directly with QuickBooks Online. So for those of you that are looking, again, to get access to data for advisory services, or that's going to be sourced for your valuation, you've got quick access to that information. We are looking for continual feedback on not only integration that our firms are looking for, but also just for general features, anything we can do to enhance either of the products. Please call your consultant or call support directly, email us. We do look for that information, as we are very interested in providing for you all the very best product around. And with that, we're going to look to basically implement any of those features that are highly requested from our customer base. So on that end, I'd like to open up to any questions that anyone has, and really appreciate everybody's time and attention today.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate your time. I do have one question. This is Colin again from the marketing team. I want to wrap up, and Katie, if you could also weigh in on this, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. And thank you again for everyone taking the time. I know we're running short, so we'll just ask the one question today. One of the things that came up in Katie's presentation was all of the many choices that firms have when it comes to marketing. So as marketers, we know at Sageworks there are plenty of options out there. And we're just curious, for firms that are maybe established and sort of have done marketing in the past and certainly have a budget every year to put towards it. And just maybe making a couple assumptions there, sort of a mid-market firm or a firm that's a larger sole prop. Kind of what types of marketing activities would you say are sort of the first step to really start to take advantage of some of the things that are coming to life in the marketing space today? What are some of the first things that they might want to consider? Kate, if you don't mind answering.
Yeah, I would say if you're first starting, if you don't have a content marketing strategy, I think that's a great place to start. Closely tied to that, though, is your website and the technology that you have. You know, if you haven't updated your website in the past year or at least 2 years, you may have issues if your website's not responsive. But you want to make sure that you have a website that can be found online so that any of the content that you push out, one, can be found, but two, you can direct some sort of conversion. Remember, marketing is supposed to produce an action. So if you're really looking to start, if you don't have a content strategy and an online search engine strategy, I think that would be a great place to start.
Thank you, Katie. I think that's always an interesting point. Content marketing is definitely something we've seen a lot at Sageworks, and folks in the industry are starting to really take advantage of it. And obviously platforms like LinkedIn provide opportunities to distribute that content pretty easily and inexpensively for that. So it's always interesting to think as firms are trying to figure out really how to approach 2016, what are some of the first steps. So thank you for that answer. And thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone on the call really appreciates it as well. Certainly if anyone has questions for Katie, we can redirect those through Sageworks if you'd like to reach out to us, or I'm sure you can find her online or on LinkedIn as well, and I'm sure she'd be happy to get in touch. So thank you again to everyone who joined us. We're going to sign off, and just know that you will receive an email from us this week following up with the slides from today's presentation.